In this video today, I'll guide you through 4 key decisions that will shape your cruise experience and ensure you have an awesome cruise. This video is the first in a series aimed at helping those that are new cruisers or those that may have only taken 1 or 2 cruises. So our first key is you have to pick the right cruise line. And when I say choosing the right cruise line, I'm really talking a lot about what is the vibe of this cruise line? What do they offer? So this is going to come down to also thinking about if you are sailing by yourself, if you're a solo traveler, if you're going to be going as a couple, if you're going to be going as a family, if you're going to be a multi-generational family, are you going as a group? The cruise line, you will get a sense of the cruise line, the vibe that they have, and if it's going to suit you as a solo traveler, you as a couple, you as a family, so on and so forth. So that's very important. If you are a family, especially a multi-generational family where you may have different ages of people in your family from very young to even to our seniors, you want to make sure that you're choosing a cruise line that's going to offer you that variety. And also that suits the style that you need, that's going to suit all the different members of your family. Same thing as a solo traveler. If you're a solo traveler, you want to choose cruise lines that will be geared more towards giving you those options as a solo traveler. Like, do they have solo traveler staterooms? Do they have really good options for, reducing the solo supplement, which really is basically, because this is a video for those that are new to cruising, the solo supplement basically is that as one person in a cabin, usually they're geared toward having double occupancy. You're likely going to pay like 200% even though you're one person in a cabin. So do they have it where they may have a reduced solo supplement where you're only paying 100% or 150%? So you just want to keep those things in mind in thinking about the cruise lines. This is the first video in a series that I mentioned, so we'll get into a lot of this in some future videos, but it's very important to make sure that the vibe of the cruise line is going to match the vibe of your family, yourself, or your group. Another thing that's important in thinking about the cruise line is that different cruise lines some have more that are included, like as far as gratuities or, when you're the crew appreciation, drinks, Wi-Fi. Some have some like maybe money towards excursions or onboard credit towards excursions. So even in thinking about the cruise lines, depending upon your style and what you're looking for yourself, you want to make sure that you're choosing a cruise line that some have that are more included options versus ones that are less included options. So I'll give you an example. If you are 18 and above and you like the vibe of Virgin Voyages, for example, Virgin Voyages has pretty much everything included. They have included Wi-Fi. They have included your basic drinks. They have included gratuities for the crew and more. The only thing they don't have included is basically like if you want to have alcoholic beverages or you want to have specialty drinks. And the excursions, or if you're going to a port and you want to go off and do a tour, those things aren't included. But then there's other cruise lines. I'll use an example like Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean, basically you are paying for your cruise fare and you will get your, basic dining that comes with your cruise fare in the main dining room and some other some other places on the ship as well. And also drinks as well, basic drinks. But Royal Caribbean is not including any alcoholic beverages. They're not including any specialty restaurants. They're not including anything related to shore excursions. So in thinking about the cruise line and thinking about your family or yourself or you as a couple, that's another thing I would say to consider in thinking about choosing the right cruise line. Another thing in thinking about the right cruise line is, and this is really one that's a preference for certain people, do they have buffets or is it more that it's served to you when you go to like dining halls or areas where they have food? So this may or may not be that important for you, but I still want to bring it up because some people are more particular about not going to buffets where everyone's touching everything versus you go to the buffet or the area and actually the crew is giving you the food or serving you the food. So some cruise lines lean more to that. Other ones do not. So again, for instance, Virgin Voyages, they have a dining hall that is more where it's not a buffet. You go up to the different stands. Actually, you can sit down and raise a flag in the galley for Virgin Voyages, and the crew will come to you and you can place an order. Or you can go up to one of the stations and the crew will prepare your food on a plate and give it to you. Or they have just traditional buffets where there's stations that you go to, you pick up the food that you want, you just keep going around the station. So those cruise lines are more like, again, Royal Caribbean is set up more like that, and other cruise lines as well. So you just want to kind of have a sense of, what you like, and also to, it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a deciding factor, but I do think that it's something you should be aware of. And if that's something particularly important to you, you want to consider that. So now that we've selected the right cruise line, our next key is we're going to select the right ship. So for this area, this is important because this also goes back to when I was talking a little while ago about vibe on for the cruise line. So ships have, I would say, personalities. There are larger ships, there are smaller ships, there's ocean cruising, there's river cruising, and it all again is going to come down to the purpose of your trip and who actually you're traveling with. So you want to consider if you're traveling with a family where you have multi-generational from, younger children all the way up to grandma, grandpa, or our seniors, however your family is situated. You want to consider a ship that's going to give you enough to do, that has enough variety. Now, I'm not going to say that only larger ships, mega ships or medium-sized ships have enough to do. There are some cruise lines that do have some smaller ships or medium-sized ships that have a lot to do. But this is where you want to understand more about what are the activities on board for that ship or that cruise line style, and also then the ship that, is a part of it. So many of the cruise lines have 20 plus ships, a lot of the mainstream ones, and the ships vary in different sizes. So you just want to do a little bit of research and understand what different activities are available on those ships. Another thing about ship size is considering walkability. This is, I think, quite important. Larger ships, there's going to be a lot of walking, especially if you're on one of the newer mega ships. A lot to do for everybody, but you definitely, there's a consideration if you're traveling with more senior people or just anyone who has mobility challenges, that, walking is going to be important. They're large vessels, so you're going to be doing a lot of walking. The smaller ships or the medium-sized ships, you won't have as much of that. So that may also be something to just consider determining based on your situation. So I think the next thing to talk about in thinking about choosing the right ship is the atmosphere on board the ship. What is it going to feel like? Do you want the look and feel of the ship? Are you looking for something more modern? Are you looking for something, or you don't even have a preference if it's modern or not. You just really want to get on the ship and have a good time. You just want nice, clean accommodations. So I would say think about it from the standpoint of like you visiting a hotel. This is the best advice I can give. What kind of hotels do you like? If you like certain hotels that are more modern, more upscale, likely a ship that's more modern and upscale will be something that you'll probably gravitate more to and you'll probably like a lot better. So just consider the types of things that you like, your style, and see about how to match that to the actual ship. So up next in thinking about the right ship are amenities and entertainment. So in kind of tying into the theme of what we have been talking about variety. For the people that you're sailing with, or if you're going by yourself, what kind of entertainment are you looking for? Are you more concerned or like more immersive types of entertainment where you're learning? Do you want to go to comedy shows? Are you looking to go to like Broadway style shows? Do you want to see singing events? Do you like to do karaoke? So think about the types of things you tend to like to do, or you may just want to explore now that you're on, you're doing this adventure and going on a cruise. And consider that and comparing that also what's available on the cruise ship, because that's going to be very important. You're likely going to be on a cruise ship probably 3, 4, 5+ days. If you're a new cruiser, maybe 5+ days or 3 or 4 because you're just trying to start it out. But you're going to be spending a considerable amount of time on the ship, even with port days. So that's something to consider. So in thinking now about dining choices and choosing the right ship based on your dining preferences. If you're a foodie and you like to try a lot of different types of food, For you, you're going to want to go on a ship that's going to give you a lot of different specialty restaurants likely. So you have that variety. That can be a larger ship, or it can be a medium-sized ship, or it can be a smaller ship. It just really all depends on what you're looking for and what those ships have available. So the dining aspect of it, with your cruise fare will come basic dining. Like, you will have access to some kind of a main dining room where you can select your time, or you can go and actually go to the dining hall when you're ready to eat. But if you really want to look a little bit more deeply into, like, you want to know, like, okay, I want to go to an Italian restaurant, I want to go to hibachi, or I want to go to a restaurant that focuses more on seafood, you'll have those options on most cruise ships nowadays. But you just have to determine which cruise ship is going to be best for you based on those options. So now let's talk a little bit about the ship age and what they have, the tech that's on board the ship. So a lot of the newer vessels that are out here, cruise ships that have been launched, they are brand new. They have a lot of the more modern technology. They have, like, what they're called destination elevators, where you just select your floor and it tells you which elevator to go to. The door is open. You don't have to touch anything. There are even some cruise lines that, you can just walk up to the door, don't have to touch anything, and the door will light up and you can go in. So depending upon your style and the vibe you're looking for, again, you want to think about a ship. If you like more modern things, if you like things that aren't necessarily so old in age, you're likely going to want to choose probably a newer cruise ship. Now, when I say newer cruise ship, I'm not saying that it has to necessarily have been released in 2025 or 2024 or whatever. It could be 5 to 6 years old, because a lot of times what the cruise lines do with the cruise ships is they actually they go back into what's called a dry dock after a certain number of years, and they make improvements to them. So there could be a ship that was released 15 years ago that's been refurbished and has been brought up to standard. So this is just where it comes down to really understanding, looking at things, or looking at the ships, understanding what technology is on board. And also, some cruise lines just gear more towards that. But that's something that I would highly recommend, is thinking about that aspect, the technology aspect and a newer ship aspect for yourself. If you do not like old things, do not go on an old cruise ship. I'm just going to tell you that right now, because you're likely not going to have a good time. You're going to be constantly thinking about, okay, why did I spend my money? And this is the type of environment that I have. So just take that in consideration in thinking about choosing the right cruise ship. Another thing I'll say too is, you want to think about, if you're a person that wants to do suites or have upgrades or more of a VIP experience, selecting the right cruise ship is going to be very important as well, because not all of them have the same types of options. So you just want to make sure that if that is your experience, or if that's experience that you're looking for, that you choose a ship that's going to meet those needs that you have. So before we jump into key number 3, I want to just take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about a quiz that I created to help out people that are new to cruising or never have cruised before. It's called the Cruise Style Match Quiz. And the purpose of it really is to help you to pick the right cruise ships, lines, understand what your cruise style is. It gives you your top 2 cruise styles when you take the quiz, and you will also have access to download a full guide that goes a little bit more in depth about your cruise style. It gives you your top 5 recommended cruise ships, as well as some honorable mentions. So I will link that in the description below, but I wanted to just pop in and tell you a little bit about that before we move on to key number 3. So now that we've talked about choosing the right cruise line, the right cruise ship, we're now going to talk about choosing the right itinerary and length of your cruise. So first, let's talk about itinerary. So in thinking about the itinerary, usually people, when they're thinking about going on a cruise, they kind of have an idea already of where in the world they want to go. Some people may want to go more warm destination environments. Some people may want more cultural immersion and want to go to Europe. Some people might really have had a dream that they want to go on to Alaska and see Alaska. So it really does depend on what you're looking for. I'll say this too, and I say this to my clients as well, that really and truly, like, even thinking about a land-based trip, anywhere you want to go, typically you can get there by cruise unless it's like right in the middle of a country. Definitely they have to be somewhere where there's a water access to it, but you can typically get similar experiences on a cruise, whether it be ocean or river. So it really comes down to what's on your dream list. Where do you want to go? If it's a lot of people, there's a lot of people that go to the Caribbean for cruising. That is a great opportunity. And I would say for first time cruisers, if you're in the US, of course, that is the closest location to go to. You can go to one of the ports, one of the major ports out of the US. Fly there. If you're close to one already, you might be able to drive there and go on a 4, 5, 6, 7 day cruise and not spend a lot of time and have that very first experience. So I would say think about what type of experience you're looking for. And I'm not saying that if you're a first time cruiser that you should only go to the Caribbean. You can go wherever you really want to go, but it's just thinking about what is it that you're looking to get out of the cruise, what experience you're looking to have. Is there a place you're looking to go? Are you looking to do river cruises that are more laid back and quiet, and you're looking at a lot of things as you're slowly moving down the river and you have more time to go into port and walk through historical villages and things like that? Or are you looking for more like you want to go to the beach and you want to go to different ports and just have a little bit of a taste, at the different ports, go on a couple of excursions. So it's really thinking about what you're looking for and what you're looking to get out of your vacation. Now, let's talk a little bit about the length of your actual itinerary. If you're a first-time cruiser or you're new to cruising, I will say to start out with first-time cruises, if you've never been on a cruise before, my recommendation for you would be probably to do no less than a 3 or 4 day cruise and probably no more than a 7 day cruise. And the reason I say it is because you just have not had an opportunity yet to have the experience. And I would hate for you to be on a cruise ship for like 10 days, 14 days or longer, and you're absolutely dreading it. So my recommendation is, again, no more than 7 days. That's what I would do to start. And I would say too that take it slow with your first cruise. Now, you don't have to, but I'm just saying you could take it slow. Go somewhere, that you can fly to quickly. Because when you're thinking about longer cruises, or let's say you want to go somewhere in Europe, that's going to be at least a 2 day prior to you getting on the cruise ship, then likely no less than a 7, 8 day cruise. And then you have to have how much time to get back to the US. So that's kind of a longer trip and more involved. So that's why I just make the recommendation that for your first cruise, or if you're new to cruising, like you've only done 1 or 2 cruises, if you've done 1 cruise and you know how it is, hey, I would say do whatever you feel is necessary, because at that point you've had that experience. But if you've never gone on a cruise, I would say take a little bit easier at first and go somewhere that's a little bit closer so you can have that experience. And then you'll know if you really like cruising, and then you can go across the world, go wherever you want to go. So we are now at our final key. Now that you've selected the right cruise line, cruise ship, itinerary, and length, we need to think about what is the right cabin for you, or cabins. So we're going to take a cabin by cabin, cabin type by cabin type. So we're going to first start off with the interior cabin. So who's the interior cabin for? Interior cabins are for really anyone. It could be, I've seen families, maybe 3, 4 that have been interior cabins. I've seen, of course, couples. I've seen solo travelers, of course, in interior cabins. Interior cabins are your most budget-friendly option. So if you're someone who's going to feel like you're just going to want to sleep and go to and shower and go and spend your whole day on the ship, and that's really all you're interested in, an interior cabin may be perfectly fine for you. Also, interior cabins, you tend to get, honestly, a little bit better sleep. But if you're someone who's claustrophobic, please do not do an interior cabin. Pick a cabin that at least has a porthole, and we'll get into other cabin types in a few minutes. So that's who an interior cabin, I would say, would be best for. Also, too, interior cabins tend to be they're not on the outer parts of the ship. Usually they're more like towards the inner part, but they can still be at the forward of the ship or the back of the ship. Forward of the ship is called forward, and then the back ship is called aft. That's just the language. But they tend to be more in the middle. So usually more in the middle and further and lower down on the ship, you have less issues with motion sickness. So they can sometimes be good for that as well. So our next cabin type is called an ocean view. In Ocean View cabin, you get a porthole. So you may have one or two portholes. It really depends on the cruise ship and line that you're going with. But you'll be able to see outside. You won't be able to walk outside. It's just kind of like a window, a circular window in your room. They tend to be a little bit bigger. They sometimes can be a similar size to just a regular balcony cabin. They definitely are larger typically than the interior cabin. So it's kind of like your next level up from an interior cabin. Also tend to be a little bit more budget friendly, but a little bit more, of course, expensive than interior cabins. And ocean view cabins are good for anybody. Everyone that I mentioned for interior is the same for ocean view. It just depends on, if you really are like a person that's like, I don't necessarily need a balcony, but I also want to have some light, daylight, then an ocean view cabin likely would be a best option for you. So up next is one of my favorites, which is the balcony cabin. Now, balcony cabins, they come in many different shapes, types, and forms depending upon the cruise line and cruise ship. There are balconies that actually have your balconies and you're looking at the ocean. They have balconies where you're looking over like Central Parks if you're on like a Royal Caribbean ship. They have balconies where there's like, it's called like a veranda. Infinite verandas is what they're kind of called for some of the cruise lines. I know Celebrity, also Royal Caribbean has some of those. Those are just the ones that are popping in my head. But those are more like there's a window that kind of comes down at the end of your cabin, and there's seats and a table there, and the window comes down, so you have access to get the breeze coming in from the ocean, or just if you're overlooking like a part of the ship, you can actually hear what's going on outside. So there are different types of balconies. There's also just a standard balcony where you have a door that you open up from your cabin, you walk out, you have seats, and you can kind of look at the ocean or look over an area on the cruise ship. Balcony cabins are for those, I would say, that really truly want a balcony, that want the experience of having to be able to go out or having the access to outside fresh air, to be able to, kind of connect with the outside. You're not someone who, if you're a person that um, wants more of that experience, especially if you're going to places like Alaska, I would say, or certain places that are just very beautiful, or that you want to have that experience of seeing and being kind of connected, you definitely want to get a balcony cabin. Balcony cabins are for the same people, honestly, for interior, also ocean view. Family can be for solo if they're having, I would say for solo for sure, if they have the option where you're giving kind of like a discounted solo supplement rate, or if you just want a balcony cabin. For multi-gen fans, for couples, it's really for anyone, and also for anyone who really feels like they have to have a balcony. There are people that really do feel that way, and I get it. So that's what I would say a balcony cabin's for. Up next are suites. Now, suites are, I would say, good for people who want that kind of VIP experience, because you are going to be paying a more elevated price or investment for your cruise. But you do have usually a lot of benefits and perks that come along with getting a suite. Usually you're getting like priority embarkation when you're getting on the ship, or boarding day. Getting off the ship, you may have access to like certain types of special lounges or dining areas that only people in suites can access. You may have like a Royal Caribbean has what's called a genie. It depends on the cruise line, but you get a lot of extra benefits and perks a lot of times when it comes to a suite. I would say suites probably are going to be more for people who are looking for that higher level VIP experience, or you're going to like for like an anniversary. It's like an special event for yourself and you want to splurge a little bit. Um, Also too, for it could be for anybody, but it really, I think those are probably the best choices that I would say for people that will probably be best for choosing a suite. And you'd be surprised sometimes there's different levels of suites. So the pricing of them really does vary by cruise line as well as cruise ships. So up next, we're going to talk about solo cabins or solo studios, which are what they're called on some cruise lines. So solo cabins or solo studios really are for those who are probably just one person that's going to be in a room. Some of these rooms, though, usually can fit two, but probably I wouldn't do more than that, because they're actually smaller sometimes than interior cabins, but they're designed for those people who are traveling by themselves. So they're more reasonably priced. And some of these cabins on some cruise lines are actually give you a little bit of perks as well, where you may have like a solo lounge that's only made for people who are in solo cabins. I know Norwegian Cruise Line does a lot of that. They have some really nice studios, and they have like an area that only the studio people in those studios can access, kind of like a lounge. Virgin Voyages also, but you would just have to be 18 plus, also has some solo rooms. The interior, they call them in solo interiors or interior rooms, but they have them as well. Um, and also even Royal Caribbean has some of the smaller interior rooms that really can be made for like one or two people. So it really does depend on who your preferences. I will say though, usually the solo studios, you're not saying there's no window, there's no balcony. So it really is more like an inside cabin. But it's definitely a good choice if you're traveling by yourself. And I really do like the options for some of the cruise lines where they give you access to like certain lounges where you can kind of mingle and connect with other solo travelers as well. Other things of thinking about the cabin that I would say I would call them rules to follow is if you're a person who you get motion sick, if you get car sick, bus sick, train sick, if you get sick when you're moving on land, you may have a propensity to get seasick, motion sickness when you're on a cruise ship. Now, I will say this. I've been on many different cruises and I've not gotten motion sick, but that doesn't mean I won't. And I do have a tendency to have motion sickness. So I would say if that is something that you know about yourself or you're concerned about it, always get a cabin that's in the middle of the ship, midship, not too forward, not too back, not too aft, in the middle, and also as low down as you can get, because that's really where there's more stability if you do happen to have rocky seas or something's going on with the ship. So that's my advice for if you have motion sickness. Another thing I would say to consider too in thinking about the type of cabin that you choose is consider the number of port days that you have in your itinerary. If you have a very port intensive rich itinerary, then do you really want a balcony cabin? Think about those things just because you're not going to be leveraging some of those benefits of having some of these spaces if you have really port intensive days. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't get one. I'm just saying, just consider that and you're thinking about the choices between if you get interior, if you get an ocean view, if you're going to get a balcony, or if you're going to get a suite. So that's just something to take in mind and consider. And also, I would say, thinking about accessible cabins. This is another cabin that it can be any of the ones I mentioned, like interior, ocean, balcony, or, well, really, they may have some actually accessible suites as well. I think they do for many of the cruise lines, they do. But accessible rooms. So I would say if you're someone who needs, like if you have a scooter or you qualify for getting an accessible cabin, I would say definitely find the cruise line, the ship as early as possible so that you can choose your cabin as soon as possible because there's not as many accessible cabins aboard cruise ships. And I would hate for you not to have the opportunity to sail or, have to go to a regular cabin if you could go to a regular cabin. So you want to do that early if you're a person that does need an accessible cabin. So if you're in the process of planning your first cruise or your next cruise and you still have a lot of questions around just trying to figure out like what's the best cruise ship, cruise line, itinerary, whatever, the cruise style match guide quiz that I created, I think can be very helpful for you. So again, that link is in the description below. And also too, if you have any questions, just please reach out. My contact information is in the description below as well. I am a travel advisor. I am here for you. My services are complimentary. But definitely reach out if you have any questions or if there's anything I can ever do for you. Happy sailing and take care.